G'day legends, Captain Dolo here, back with another video. Today we're diving into the deep end, exploring the top 10 most dangerous cities in the world. Now when I say dangerous, I'm not just talking about your everyday pickpocketing or petty theft. We're talking about places where danger is a way of life, where crime runs rampant, and even just breathing can be a hazard. That's right, mates. We're talking about places where the streets are riddled with crime, and the sanitation situation is, well, let's just say it's not pretty. We'll be looking at murder rates, gang violence, poverty, and even the lack of basic necessities like clean water and sanitation. So buckle up, grab your hand sanitizer, and get ready for a wild ride as we explore the underbelly of these urban jungles. Let's dive in. Kicking off our list at number 10 is Caracas, Venezuela. This city might surprise you, but it's got a dark side. Caracas has been grappling with a surge in gang violence. Turf wars, drug trafficking, you name it. The murder rate is shocking, sitting at insert shocking statistic. But it's not just the gangs. Corruption within the police force makes it hard for citizens to feel safe, and sanitation issues add to the woes. Open sewers, overflowing garbage, it's a breeding ground for disease. Outbreaks of diseases like cholera and typhoid are common. This place sounds like a nightmare, right? And you're not wrong. But behind these statistics are real people trying to live their lives. Many residents are simply trying to survive. They don't have the luxury of moving to a safer place. Let's explore these cities with empathy and understanding. These are complex issues with no easy solutions. Coming in at number 9 is San Pedro Sula, Honduras. Now, you might be thinking, San Pedro Sula, the place with the beautiful beaches and lush rainforests? And yeah, you're right, it is a stunning country. But beneath that beauty lies a dark underbelly of crime and poverty. San Pedro Sula grapples with severe wealth disparity. This inequality leads to petty crime, robberies, and kidnappings. It's also a major transit point for narcotics. With that comes gang violence and addiction. Plus, it's highly susceptible to natural disasters. Disasters can crumble infrastructure, leaving residents vulnerable. It's a sad reality that a place so beautiful can also be so dangerous. At number 8, we have Cape Town, South Africa, held hostage by its own turmoil. This city has a long and troubled history, and unfortunately, that history continues to haunt it today. The city has been plagued by political instability and violence for decades. Armed groups roam the streets, terrorizing citizens and engaging in kidnappings, extortion, and all sorts of horrific acts. The government's grip on power is tenuous at best, and the police force is often outmatched and outgunned. This lack of security has created a climate of fear, where even basic necessities like food and water can be hard to come by. And if the threat of violence wasn't enough, the city is also grappling with a severe humanitarian crisis. Years of conflict have displaced millions of people, leaving them without homes, jobs, or access to basic services. The sanitation situation is dire. This has led to outbreaks of diseases like cholera and typhoid. It's a heartbreaking reality. It is a stark reminder of the devastating impact of conflict and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. Number 7 on our list is Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. This one's a bit of a head-scratcher because, on the surface, it's a modern metropolis with gleaming skyscrapers and a thriving economy. But scratch beneath the surface, and you'll find a city deeply divided by wealth and inequality. You see, Rio de Janeiro is home to some of the wealthiest people in the world, but it also has a massive impoverished population living in sprawling favelas. This disparity creates a breeding ground for crime, as those struggling to survive often resort to desperate measures. And then there's the issue of police brutality. The police force in Rio de Janeiro has been accused of corruption and using excessive force, particularly against marginalised communities. This lack of accountability and transparency only further erodes trust in law enforcement and perpetuates a cycle of violence. But it's not just the crime that makes Rio de Janeiro dangerous. The city is also facing a growing environmental crisis. Air pollution is at hazardous levels, and the lack of proper sanitation in poorer areas leads to the spread of diseases. It's a stark reminder that even in the 21st century, the gap between the haves and have-nots can be vast and deadly. Coming in at number 6 is Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Now, this city has become synonymous with drug violence, and for good reason. Ciudad Juarez is at the heart of the global drug trade, and with that comes a whole host of problems. Powerful cartels control vast swaths of the city, often operating with impunity. They engage in turf wars, assassinations, and kidnappings, terrorizing the local population. The murder rate in Ciudad Juarez is staggering, with over 100 homicides per 100,000 people. But it's not just the cartels you got to worry about. Petty crime is also rampant, and even tourists can become targets of opportunity. The police force is often outgunned and outmatched by the cartels, and corruption is a serious problem. And as if the violence wasn't enough, Ciudad Juarez is also grappling with poverty and inequality. Many residents live in impoverished neighborhoods with limited access to basic services like healthcare and education. It's a vicious cycle that can be difficult to break. But there are organizations and individuals working tirelessly to bring peace and justice to Ciudad Juarez. At the halfway mark, we have St. Louis, USA. Now, this city might surprise some of you, but it's a place of stark contrasts. On one hand, you've got a bustling metropolis with a vibrant cultural scene and a growing economy. But on the other hand, you've got deep-seated social and political tensions that often spill out onto the streets. St. Louis has been rocked by protests and riots in recent years, fueled by anger over inequality, corruption, and a lack of opportunities. These demonstrations can turn violent, with clashes between protesters and police, and even between different factions within the city. And then there's the issue of terrorism. St. Louis has been targeted by terrorist attacks in the past, and the threat remains a constant concern. This constant state of unrest creates an atmosphere of anxiety and uncertainty, making it difficult for residents to feel safe. And while the government is trying to address these issues, it's a complex and deeply rooted problem with no easy solutions. It's a reminder that even in cities that seem modern and developed on the surface, there can be underlying tensions that can erupt at any moment. Coming in at number 4 is Mogadishu, Somalia. Now, this city is facing a perfect storm of problems: rapid urbanization, extreme poverty, and a lack of basic infrastructure. Mogadishu has seen its population explode in recent years as people flock to the city in search of a better life. But the city is struggling to cope with this influx of people. Housing is scarce and often inadequate, with many forced to live in overcrowded slums. These slums often lack basic services like running water, sanitation, and electricity, making them breeding grounds for disease. And as if that wasn't enough, Mogadishu is also highly vulnerable to natural disasters. Flooding is a constant threat, and when it rains, the city's inadequate drainage systems can be quickly overwhelmed, turning streets into rivers of sewage. This lack of basic infrastructure puts a huge strain on the city's resources and makes it difficult to maintain law and order. Crime rates are high, and the police force is often stretched thin trying to respond to the sheer volume of incidents. It's a challenging situation, and one that requires a multifaceted approach to address. At number 3, we have Kabul, Afghanistan. Now, this city has been ravaged by years of civil war, and the scars of that conflict run deep. While the war may be officially over, the city is still far from peaceful. Armed groups continue to operate in the shadows, engaging in criminal activities like extortion, kidnapping, and human trafficking. The rule of law is weak, and the police force is often ill-equipped and poorly trained to deal with the complex security challenges. But it's not just the violence that makes Kabul dangerous. The city is also facing a humanitarian crisis of epic proportions. Years of conflict have destroyed infrastructure, crippled the economy, and displaced millions of people. Access to basic necessities like food, water, and healthcare is limited, and the sanitation situation is dire. This has led to outbreaks of diseases like cholera and measles, further compounding the suffering of the city's residents. It's a heartbreaking situation, and one that highlights the devastating and long-lasting impact of conflict on communities. Coming in at number 2 is Medellin, Colombia. Now, this city might not be as well known as some of the others on our list, but it's a place where danger lurks around every corner. Medellin has the unfortunate distinction of being one of the murder capitals of the world. The homicide rate here is absolutely staggering, with over 130 murders per 100,000 people. The city is plagued by gang violence, fueled by poverty, inequality, and a lack of opportunities. But it's not just the gangs you've got to worry about. Carjackings, robberies, and sexual assaults are also disturbingly common. The police force is widely seen as corrupt and ineffective, and many residents have simply lost faith in law enforcement. This lack of security has created a climate of fear where people are afraid to leave their homes at night, and even during the day, they're constantly looking over their shoulders. It's a sad reality that in Medellin, violence has become a way of life. And finally, the city that takes the grim top spot on our list is Acapulco, Mexico. Now, this city has become infamous for its violence and lawlessness. For years, Acapulco has been embroiled in a brutal drug war, with powerful cartels vying for control of the city's lucrative drug trade. These cartels operate with virtual impunity, carrying out executions, kidnappings and bombings with terrifying regularity. The murder rate in Acapulco is off the charts, with over 150 homicides per 100,000 people. But it's not just the cartels that make Acapulco so dangerous. The city is also plagued by poverty, corruption, and a lack of basic services. Many residents live in fear, too afraid to speak out against the violence for fear of retribution. The police force is often outgunned and outmatched by the cartels, and corruption within the ranks is rampant. It's a volatile and dangerous cocktail that has made Acapulco a no-go zone for many and a living nightmare for those who call it home. It's a stark reminder of the human cost of the drug trade and the devastating impact it can have on entire communities. So there you have it, legends. The top 10 most dangerous cities in the world. It's a sobering reminder that danger can lurk in even the most unexpected places. From rampant crime and violence to inadequate sanitation and healthcare, these cities face a complex web of challenges. It's important to remember that behind these statistics are real people trying to navigate incredibly difficult circumstances. What are your thoughts on these dangerous cities? Have you ever been to any of these places or experienced something similar? Share your stories in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, legends. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ding that notification bell so you don't miss out on any of my future adventures. Stay safe out there.